Incorporated, your Science 8 teacher. And our topic for today is all about understanding typhoons.
Here in the Philippines, we experience typhoons quite often. Typhoons come most of the year except for the dry months. Most of the time, typhoons cause the destruction of our natural surroundings, infrastructures, livelihoods, food sources, and even loss of lives. Do you sometimes wonder how typhoons are formed and why it comes often to the Philippines? We will have a better understanding of typhoons as we go to this lesson. In weather science or meteorology, cyclones are winds that are spiraling inwardly in a counterclockwise direction in the northern hemisphere and a clockwise direction in southern hemisphere because of the Coriolis effect. What is Coriolis effect? Recall that you can compute for the Earth's rotational speed at a given latitude by dividing its circumference by the number of hours in a day, and that will be 24 hours. The Earth rotates at the speed of around 1,670 kilometers per hour at the equator and much less at the poles. This is because the Earth is wider at the equator than at the poles. This means that a point at the equator would have farther to travel in a day. Pretend that you are standing at the equator and you are throwing a ball in a straight line towards the North Pole. The path of the ball would be deflected to the right because of the Coriolis force because the rotation of the poles is slower. If you throw a ball from the North Pole to the equator, the path of the ball would be deflected to the right because the Earth's rotation at the equator is faster. Projectiles moving across the surface of the Earth are subject to Coriolis force that cause apparent deflection. This is called the Coriolis effect. This is clearly seen in the deflection of the winds in the atmosphere of the Earth. Tropical cyclones. These form in low-pressure areas. There are large areas found in the tropics. The tropics is a region of the Earth surrounding the equator. It is found between the Tropic of Cancer at 23.50 degrees north and the Tropic of Capricorn at 23.50 degrees south. Let's have the different names for tropical cyclones. First one is typhoons. These are strong tropical cyclones that develop in the western North Pacific, includes our country which is the Philippines and the neighboring Asian countries. Hurricanes. Strong tropical cyclones that develop in North Atlantic, Central or Eastern North Pacific, Caribbean Sea or Gulf of Mexico. Severe cyclonic storms if they occur in the Bay of Bengal and in the Arabian Sea. Severe tropical cyclone if they occur in the western South Pacific and southern Indian Ocean. Tropical cyclones are also called differently depending on their strength. In the Philippines, the government agency, Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration, or PAG-ASA in short, designates the following terms for these tropical cyclones. Tropical disturbance, poorly developed wind circulation of weak velocities, no maximum wind speed. Tropical depression, weak low-pressure disturbance with a definite surface circulation, up to 63 kilometers per hour or 25 miles per hour. Tropical storm, moderate tropical cyclone, 64 to 118 kilometers per hour. Typhoon, intense tropical cyclone, 118 kilometers per hour and above. How typhoons developed. Typhoons form in the warm, moist air of the tropics, mostly coming from the ocean. Every few days, thunderstorms form in this environment and move with the winds. The moisture from the warm ocean feeds the thunderstorms, converting the moisture to heat. These thunderstorms have low-pressure surfaces that attract more moisture from the ocean, making them larger. The Coriolis force makes this air mass rotate counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere and clockwise in the southern hemisphere. Air at the center of this growing spiraling mass rises rapidly and condenses into clouds and rain. The condensation releases large amounts of heat into the atmosphere. This produces even lower surface pressure and stronger winds, resulting into a stronger tropical cyclone. The cyclone is then classified as a tropical disturbance, tropical depression, tropical storm, or typhoon, depending on the strength of the winds that develop. The air sinks in the center of the cyclone, creating the eye, where the winds are calm. The strongest winds occur on the sides of the eye, called the eye wall. Typhoons generally weaken as they move toward the land. This is because the main fueling ingredient that sustains it, the moist air of the ocean, is gone. Why the Philippines is prone to typhoons? Most typhoons in the western North Pacific Ocean, including the Philippines, occur from May to November, but they may also occur in all the months of the year. The Philippines is located a few degrees north of the equator and is therefore part of the tropical regions of Earth. It also lies just adjacent to the large Pacific Ocean, very exposed to the main factory of tropical cyclones. Recall from the previous section that the warm tropical air and moisture from the ocean fuel the birth of cyclones. The tropical cyclones that form in the Pacific Ocean generally move toward the west or the northwest in the direction of the Philippines. The tropical cyclones that form in the South China Sea generally move to the north or northeast, also toward the Philippines. The direction of these typhoons increases the possibility of occurrences of typhoons in our country. A typhoon may stay for a few days to a week or more in a particular location, and there may be another typhoon coming. To avoid confusion, names had to be assigned to each typhoon. In the Philippines, Pag-asa is in charge of assigning names to typhoons. Thus, the agency prepared 4 lists of 25 names from A to Z, excluding X, that are repeated in cycle. If the number of typhoons exceeds 25 for the year, there is an auxiliary list of 10 more names to augment the names in each set. Set 1, Alamid, Bruno, Conching, Dolor, Ernie, Florante, Gerardo, Hernan, Isco, Jerome. Set 2, Aguila, Baguis, Chito, Diego, Elena, Felino, Gonting, Harriet, Indang, Jessa. Set 3, Abe, Berto, Charo, Dado, Estoy, Felion, Henning, Herman, Irma, and Jaime. And the last set, Alakdan, Baldo, Clara, Densyo, Estong, Felipe, Gardo, Heling, Ismael, and the last one is Julio. When you listen to a news bulletins about incoming typhoons, sometimes the news reporters mention two names, though they refer to the same typhoon. For example, Typhoon Yolanda was also called Typhoon Haiyan. The reason was that starting January 1, 2000, the Typhoon Committee of the World Meteorological Organization, or WMO, made a list of typhoon names for the western North Pacific and the South China Sea, including the Philippines. The names were proposed by the member countries and included names of men or women, fruits, animals, flowers, and others in the native language of the member countries. The names of typhoons are not arranged in alphabetical order but according to the alphabetical order of the member countries which compose the committee. And these member countries are Cambodia, China, Korea, Hong Kong and China, Japan, Laos, Macau and China, Malaysia, Micronesia, Philippines, Korea, Thailand, USA, and Vietnam. And this is the set B of international typhoon names for Western North Pacific and South China Sea. Pag-asa issues announcements about incoming typhoons and their possible effects. The list below describes the weather, impact conditions, and precautionary measures that are peculiar to each typhoon level. Public storm warning signals are raised to warn the public of incoming weather disturbances. Once a storm signal is raised, conditions are not yet necessarily felt in the given area. The following are the lead times for issuing a public storm signal. The weather disturbance is expected in 36 hours once public storm warning signal number 1 is raised. The weather disturbance is expected in 24 hours once public storm warning signal number 2 is raised. The weather disturbance is expected in 18 hours once public storm warning signal number 3 is raised. The weather disturbance is expected in 12 hours once public storm warning signal number 4 is raised. And that would be all. Thank you so much.
The complete information of today's lesson is available in our LMS, Messenger, and Google platform. Remember to send me also your exit responses in our chat room following the given patterns. 3 things you learned today, 2 things you found interesting with this lecture, and 1 question you still have on your mind regarding this lesson. Rate also your today's understanding by sending one of the following emojis: satisfied, happy, confused, boring, or sleepy.